Hey Harmonizers, welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about something that's trending. I'm going to give you guys a lick and chew moment, and then I'm going to answer a question from one of you guys that you have asked. And I want to start off this episode with a question for you guys of what should I call these particular videos that I do for you guys where we cover what's trending, a lick and chew moment, and a question of the day. So I'd love to get your comment below, and for everybody who leaves a comment below, I'm going to enter you all in a random draw for a little gift from Harmony Horsemanship. So I would love to see in your comments a couple ideas that I heard some people throwing around were like the Lindsay Lowdown or the Lindsay Report or something like that, but would love to see what you guys think in your comments for what to call these types of videos. So this is my first video coming back from Florida, back at home. Yes, that is still my Christmas tree in the background. My husband did not put it away while I was away, and so I'll probably get around to that hopefully by later this week. But otherwise, yes, I still have a Christmas tree in my living room. So let's get started with what's trending. So right now what's trending is that in Boyle County in Kentucky, there was a horse farm that had a bunch of horses that had to be surrendered. They were starved. There were a few of them that were found dead from being starved, and they were actually dead in their stalls. And they had so much manure in their stalls that it was like really disgusting to see the pictures of what they had shoveled out of those stalls. So basically horses that were being completely neglected and not cared for. Now what makes this kind of more interesting is that a bunch of these horses were actually from Mustang training challenges. So these were horses that had actually, not all of them, but a lot of the horses had actually gone to Mustang training challenges and actually placed pretty well at the competitions and then came home to starve to death, which is like awful. And I'll share with you guys some pictures and things that were going around. One of them is this beautiful filly that is a beautiful roan little filly that competed in the youth competition, and there's a picture of her getting a 6th place ribbon, or I think it's 6, but it's actually pink, and in Canada pink means 6, but I forget what that is in America. I think it might be 5th place. But anyways, this little filly was a top 10 finisher, gorgeous, and then was one of the fillies that came home to die in their stall from being starved to death. So I don't want to dwell on bashing this particular individual. It was like a mother-daughter farm situation. I want to more talk about the solution-focused piece and kind of why this happened and what can we do to prevent it. Now, I actually reached out to the person on Facebook whose farm was taken out, like the horses where they were taken, and I asked if I could hear their side of the story. They neglected to respond to me. No big surprise there, I guess. And I didn't say anything mean in my message to them. I just said, look, I hear this happened and I wanted to get your side of things. They didn't want to respond, so they never responded. So we're going to just speculate some solutions and kind of what went on, and I'd love to get your comments. So the first one is, I'm wondering if with these Mustang training challenges and with the different programs that are going on, if it's realistic to expect that this sheer number of horses can find appropriate homes in domestic life. And when I look at the horses at my farm, I probably spend about $3,500 to $4,500 a year on my horses, and they're kept at my own farm just on basic needs of hay and vet maintenance costs and farrier and deworming, like just kind of the bare bones essential services that you would expect a horse to have, around $3,500 to $4,500 a year, depending on what grain they're getting, if they're getting any grain at all. That's kind of bare bones. So that's a lot of money. Like if you've taken in 5 Mustangs in a year, for example, you're taking on about $20,000 annual cost on these horses if you aren't able to find them homes. And I've been to a couple Mustang training challenges, and some of them do have an optional auction at the end. And one of the auctions that I went to, the prices of the horses was not high. Like these were horses that were going for like $100. And do you really think that if somebody's paying $100 for their horse, are they going to have the finances to care for that horse, and are they being set up for realistic expectations for what's moving forward? I don't know. Maybe they're just looking for a good deal on a horse. Maybe they know something about horses. I don't know. But with the amount of horses that are coming off of the range and out of the holding pens into these situations, are there enough homes for them? And is this, who knows if the people who took these horses, maybe they are horrible, nasty people that don't deserve animals, and they're just like low lifes that, like, how could you even be that cruel? Maybe that is the case. Or maybe they were people that do love horses and they took on too many and didn't have enough money to feed them. And who knows why they didn't reach out for help to feed their horses and instead let them starve to death. Like, that's pretty brutal. But, maybe it was a case that they took on too many. And so then that begs the follow-up question, like, what else could the BLM do? The BLM is the land management that, figures out how many wild Mustangs can stay on the range and how many they round up. But there are other options. And so one of the options that I strongly want people to consider and to think about is birth control for horses. Because there is a herd in Wyoming. I was there and I went onto the range and I saw this herd. I went around and saw some of the different horses, and I actually did a YouTube video from when I was in Cody, Wyoming. And the herd looks very healthy. They were very healthy looking horses, nice plump horses. They definitely had enough food to eat. None of them were starving. And I wasn't there during rainy season or anything. I was there coming out of wintertime in like April. So the horses had looked good through all April when I was seeing them. And the thing about using the birth control is, I know you have to be careful about the genetics of the horses and things like that, but they're able to manage how many horses are born every year, and so the land isn't getting populated, and so they're not collecting horses from Cody, Wyoming. And as much as I love doing the Mustang challenges, and I love Mustangs, they are great little horses, there's a big part of me that feels like using the birth control and managing the numbers that are born would be a much better solution, because when you round up the horses, first, that is a little bit of a traumatic experience for them, and some horses do die during this experience of the roundup. And then horses are being placed into homes that maybe aren't the best homes. So that's some food for thought that I would like people to kind of comment on and think about that. Being realistic, because I know there's going to be some people out there that are like, oh, the horses should just be allowed to roam wild and we should just be out of their lands. Like, let's be realistic. People already live in farms. People have already moved into these areas. We're not kicking people out of their homes. The reality is that there is not enough land. Some of the land has been taken up. Whether that's right or wrong, it's done. It's done, and we're not kicking people off of their land. So given the land that's available to horses to live in the wild, given that a lot of their, like, the natural predators that would normally be eating horses are not really out there anymore either, then what is the best solution? And so I feel pretty strongly that using birth control with these herds and monitoring their genetics and doing that could be a lot better solution than trying to find homes for all of these horses that are coming off the range every single year. Because even people like myself, I can only take in so many, and then I've got to find homes for them. So another little food for thought for people is, when you do rehome a Mustang or any other horse, one of the things that I put right into my contracts is that if I need to rescue the horse, it's a $10,000 penalty. And if I find out that the horse went to slaughter or an auction, it's a $20,000 penalty. Now, what this does, putting it directly into the contract, a monetary value right there, is that you can't argue it. So if this happens, if I have to rescue a horse, or if I have to go take it from slaughter or auction, then I can take them to small claims court, which is very inexpensive and not that hard to do. I don't have to hire a lawyer or anything like that, and it's very concrete, and it's right there, and it says you're paying a $20,000 penalty. And it's not a way for me to make money. That's not the intent of it. It's meant as a deterrent, so that way there's something there already concrete saying this is a consequence that you're going to have to deal with if you don't follow through on this action. Because the reality is if you have a contract or you give away a horse and you just have a verbal agreement, or even if you have a contract that says you have a first right of refusal, if they don't follow through, it's very willy-nilly, like what kind of value is that, what kind of consequence going to happen from that? Not really anything. Now, if you keep the amount under $25,000, it can go to small claims court, and you can take that person to court pretty easily, and it makes it a real deterrent. So a real reason for that person to want to follow up with you and make sure that you know where your horses are going and that they're not going into bad hands. So that's something for you to consider. Now, in this scenario with the horses that were surrendered in Boyle County in Kentucky, they were not rehomed at all. So they were just left to starve at the farm, which is horrible, which is brutal. So then another solution that kind of comes to mind is that anybody who has animals, would you be open to having random inspections done just to verify that the housing that you're giving your animals is safe and adequate, that the animals are being nourished, like they're getting food and water, and that they're not being put into undue stress? So is that something that you would be open to, or would that be something that would be too, I don't know, too much in your pocket, so to speak? And my thoughts are, if you don't have anything to hide, and if you're feeding your animals and you're not abusing them, then why would you be opposed to having some type of agency, whether it's like an SPCA or some type of animal welfare type of agency, come and check in on your horses? I would be totally open to having a random inspection done like once a year at my farm, and having somebody check and make sure that the water we're giving our horses is, you know, clean, and that they've got access to water, and they've got access to hay or food or forage, and that they're not being tortured in any way, shape, or form. I'd be totally down with that. I would love to hear your thoughts on something like that. And if you have any other solutions to potentially that could help the horses in these desperate situations, I would totally love to see that in the comments as well. All right, so that's enough of what's trending. Pretty sad story, but I think it's worth talking about. And that brings us to our lick and chew moment of the day. So our lick and chew moment of the day comes to about how a horse can be either in a sympathetic or a parasympathetic nervous system. And basically that's fight or flight, or their thinking brain. And so if a horse is in fight or flight and they're stressed out, a horse that is stressed out like that can't heal. They can't learn or play or do different things. So you want a horse to be in the parasympathetic nervous system, which means that if you want them to heal, they can't be feeling stressed out or anxious. So something that I want you to kind of think about and ponder is that, let's say you have a horse that needs to heal from something. They've got an injury, or they've got ulcers or something like that. If you put them on stall rest to heal from this injury, but the horse is stressed to high heavens about being in the stall, are they really going to be able to heal? Is that going to be the best way to treat that horse? Because if they're stuck in their sympathetic nervous system and they cannot heal, or at least cannot heal as quickly, is that the best option? Because a lot of times when a horse is lame or they have something wrong with them, the first thing is like put them in a stall, put them on stall rest. And some horses are totally fine being on stall rest, and some horses really freak out. So given that if the horse is not going to be in a parasympathetic nervous system, which means they're not going to be able to heal as well, would it be better to actually let that horse stay outside? I'm not saying that you should let them be outside in a big massive herd and that they should be able to get hurt, but could you set up like an outdoor stall within a paddock of other horses? Or could you put them in a pen that's beside a field of other horses? Or could there be something set up where at least they can see the other horses? Or what could be done to keep the horse in a low stress environment so that way they can heal? So something for you to lick and chew on is that healing is not just about rest, but it's about keeping a horse in a parasympathetic nervous system. So that thought actually comes from Charlotte Cannon, so I'll give her due credit there. And I hope you guys have a little lick and chew on it. All right, so our question of the day comes from Maria Orr. Maria Orr asked a question. She said, Valente, my Mustang Valente's fur looks like it's kind of long, but not fluffy like other horses. And she's asking, is that typical of Mustangs? And so the answer is no. Usually a horse's coat will get kind of thick and full, and Valente does have a lot of long hairs on him. And I do think that those are what are called guard hairs. And so guard hairs happen when a horse is kind of stressed, maybe when they haven't been getting enough nutrition or something like that. And so often I find when horses come out of the holding pens or when they come from auction or other places like that, maybe they weren't getting enough to eat, maybe the travel was stressful for them, and so they end up with these guard hairs. Especially sometimes it's not even nutrition related. Sometimes it's more like they were in a warm climate and then they were taken to a cold climate and their body had to quickly produce a winter coat, even though like there wasn't enough time to really make a really thick fluffy one. So I don't think we'll really see his real winter coat until next year, after he's been fed and fat for a full year and his body has more time to adjust to the cold Canadian winter. Now, of course, I do plan on rehoming Valente after the Mustang Challenge, just because I can't keep all of my horses that I get from the challenges, but I will definitely be doing my due diligence to make sure that he finds a super good home when all is said and done. So thank you for your question, Maria. And if anybody else has any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I love seeing them. And I can't wait to hear what you think these type of segments should be called. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.